devastating storms, economic collapse, rampant disease. Our world can be a terrifying place, but it doesn't have to be. Here at Sangfroid, we have perfected the process of integration. Through this simple procedure, you can preserve the very best part of yourself, the one organ that defines you as you, and replace your vulnerabilities with invincible technology.
Hey, I'm Joe Arroyo. I'm the Technical Design Director at V1 Interactive. I joined as a junior student at DigiPen Institute of Technology to help Marcus build a prototype of what is now Disintegration in Unity. So he was nice enough to pick me up from school, and he didn't pick me up from school, if you know.
They picked you up from school.
He came, drove up, and I got in the car, and he's like, "All right,
Anybody here want to make a game?"
No, I mean he was nice enough to give a chance to a student, and did my best to help him build this prototype with only one other person, and we used that to secure funding and find a private division who was gracious enough to actually try us out as well and help us build the studio from the ground up at the same time that we started building this initial IP.
You had this prototype built and you shop it around. What's that process like? Like, were you involved in that at all? I mean, after the creation of the prototype, would you help shop that around, or was that kind of above you?
Yeah, no, it was. We were actively involved in it, and I was actually surprised. It reminded me a lot of the way some of the DigiPen game classes actually structures their game classes, because we had to do a lot of presentations to instructors that were sort of pretending to be publishers, if you will, in terms of how they gave feedback and whether or not they would quote unquote green light the next phase. And so it was surprising how once we had the prototype ready and we were taking it to different places, that all of that was very similar. Making the slide deck, figuring out how we were going to present. I spoke, Marcus spoke. We planned it all out, and once you get in those rooms and you're doing those pitches, it was more comfortable than I was expecting, because I think DigiPen actually prepared me pretty well for that sort of scenario.
So give me a brief overview of the game's story, its setting. Give me the pitch. In
Disintegration, you are playing a first-person shooter that has tactical elements, sort of a blend of two genres a bit, if you will, kind of an aerial tactical shooter. You have weapons on board a grav cycle, which is essentially a hovercraft, and at the same time you are trying to give orders to a squad of AI-controlled entities on the ground. This takes place, I think, about 100 years or so in the future, where humanity is on the brink of extinction due to things like climate change and population issues with overpopulation, and then eventually a cough pandemic that leads to us having
wrong time to cough.
It leads us we have to come up with some unique solutions essentially to get past it, and one of those is that scientists figured out a way to take the human brain physically out of the body and implant it into these robotic armatures, so that we could basically shield ourselves from the organic portion of what makes us vulnerable to these diseases. And sort of the intent was that we would do it temporarily till we could figure out with some other way to return humanity back to its original state. But there was a group of people known as the Rayon that decided that no, this is actually where humanity is going, and they never wanted to turn back. And so that led to sort of civil war, and you are leading a crew of outlaws who are also integrated, who want to return to their human forms. And so they're sort of rising up against the Rayon to try and create an uprising.
The prospect of being cooped up with a bunch of armatures doesn't appeal to me either. Look, I know what's up here counts, but I miss my body. Y'all are just a reminder.
I feel you, Agnes.
Yeah, well, you're sweet. But the thing is, you don't— Whoa! Nasty trash panda! You've been sitting there this whole time.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt your chat with something so trivial as our resistance.
So there seem to be some not so subtle real life-ish political overtones, like Star Wars style. Were stories like Star Wars an inspiration here?
Yeah, it absolutely was. Marcus had been working on this story even before we started working on the prototype. So for those that were not sure if we started out, multiplayer or single player, I mean, I assure you that the single player campaign story, that's the root and the core of, what Disintegration is and what Marcus had worked on. So you can think of it kind of like a Rogue One story, that rebel, standing up against oppression.
What was the inspiration for the grav cycle?
The game started out as a pure RTS. It was interesting because we were working on the idea of troops first, and sort of just giving orders whether we were going to allow like complex RTS things like band select and stuff like that. And eventually, we got to sort of a state where we realized, no matter how we're going to do this, we're going to be an indie studio that we're going to try and keep small, and so we have to be able to compete with something creative and unique and different. We started looking sort of through the lens of what we could bring to this, at the time, pure RTS, to make it something interesting. And the first thing that we just thought of is, maybe we're not a god in the sky. Maybe we can be an active participant in combat. So it was a drone, and it wasn't manned by a character. So it's more like, okay, well, the first thing we can think of is basically being something that does hover, similar to how you would move around a mini-map. And that's kind of how we got to the point of just having this flying vehicle. And it sort of evolved into the grav cycle because we wanted to make sure that you're not just in something that's unmanned. We wanted it to be you piloting. You're the hero of the game. So we need to figure out a way to like put arms and hands into the shot and really like put you into some kind of vehicle that made you feel like a real participant in the game.
Did you ever play the PC game Descent?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
There are
kind
a
of
lot
it.
of similarities.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's certainly a callback to that. So I mean, I'm glad you said yes. That was a classic. Go.
We
play
didn't
Descent.
really like directly try to do anything from it, but it was kind of interesting how the game started to evolve. And I even forgot about it for a while. Wasn't even thinking about the game. And it was when I think tech beta, how many people started calling that out. I started popping up and looking at some old videos of it, and I'm like, wow, we really did like kind of return to form in a lot of similarities. It's really cool.
So Disintegration is quite challenging, as I've noticed. I've caught myself screaming profanities a few times, and then continuing to play and not giving up and just kind of learning from those mistakes. But was it an early decision to have this level of difficulty, or is it something you kind of found along the way?
I would say that the moment that we decided that we were going to do something unique, then we knew that we had to lean into the idea of the mechanics being something that you're going to have to give up a lot of your preconceived notions of sort of either genre in order to be successful. And because it's kind of like a weird tightrope to walk. If we tried too hard to make this sort of easing you into the game, just a really easy way for a player to do it, then we might shoot ourselves in the foot and not sort of accomplish the goals we were looking for, which is to provide like a truly unique experience. And we think that the difficulty curve kind of plays into just the fact that the game takes a few separate click moments for you to truly pull out everything that the game has to offer. But what we have found is that when it does click, it clicks so well that things that you thought were really difficult initially, you don't even think about. Like, they just become second nature.
Yeah, I found myself on one mission that I was just really struggling at. I want to say mission 3 or so. The mission with those force field barriers that you got to hide in as that pulse comes by.
Oh yeah.
There's an area there where right after you go through a gate you had to open, there's an area in there that I died so many times in this area. And then when I came back through, because I restarted the mission again to play it again, and I came back through, and I found myself just being generally more confident, whipping around, throwing an ability one way, and then firing at another guy. So there's definitely a lot of truth to that in that learning. But I stand by. It is a very challenging game in all the best ways. But it is interesting, though.
No, that's good to hear. And the challenge, it was intentional, but yeah, we're hoping that people have those click moments and really see them happen.
What is it like balancing a multiplayer game on top of a single player game?
Oof. It's quite a challenge for sure. But man, we had so much fun building the multiplayer components of the game, no doubt. Because with all that effort that was sort of spent into making a single player campaign that was telling like a really a serious story with a bit of that Firefly vibe, to add some comedy and some fun to it in the middle of these moments. It was really nice to just sort of let loose and allow the multiplayer to be its own thing. There were a lot of conversations about how much we were going to tie it to the campaign, and I think we ultimately decided that it would be a lot more fun if the multiplayer were more of a whimsical representation. And I think that gave us a lot of freedom to actually be able to balance things in a way that didn't have to be so rigidly defined by the story and have to be checked by the validity of how it fits into the universe exactly.
Who do you play as?
Oh, Sideshow.
Sideshow? Oh yeah, Sideshow's an interesting one.
They're not great in every situation, so I can't say I only play Sideshow, but...
Well, I found I never got kills as much as I just did so much damage, and your friends clean them up, that it feels invaluable once you figure that out.
Yeah, if you're coordinated and you work with your team well, like Sideshow is like the setup for the playmakers, and you'll always... It's a thankless job, but that you can do some really good work with them.
Do you regularly, you personally, play in playtests?
Yes. Just due to the size of the studio as well, we try to do, there's plenty of help from our Vegas QA who does, countless hours of work play testing the game. But even despite that, we find it really important to encourage members of the studio to do playtests that we even schedule now. So we're at the point now where pretty much everybody at the studio takes part in these, because we sometimes see things that aren't necessarily specific to QA, like game feel or things that we're trying to go that are in line with our goals and whether or not they meet them. And a good way to figure that out is for us all to get in there and just play and then sit down and have these powwows in the corner about whether or not the game is meeting the expectations of what our design goals and pillars actually are.
Who's the best player in the office, and is that obvious?
I mean, it's right. Like I have to say me, don't I? Wait, no.
I mean, you
wait,
could.
No, humble. I gotta be humble. Wait, hang on. It's Marcus. I don't know. I don't know if there is one. You got me on the spot, and now
interesting. Yeah, too afraid to say. We'll go with you. You're the best, and now everyone's gonna know it.
You said it, not me.
Yeah.
So
what? I did not. Not true. Okay. Were there any memorable bugs that you ran into?
Memorable.
Anything funny that stands out, wacky?
Yeah, if I could, at some point, I'll pull up the folder in the future. We tried to, like, whenever weird stuff would happen, we would post them in like a Slack channel and try and archive them to some degree. Not sure if there's anything we can do with that, but I've had some fun moments working on things like foot IK, where it's about trying to get the feet to actually be placed properly on the ground for ground characters. And one negative sign can kind of invert an axis, and when the foot's trying to be planted on the ground, maybe it's trying to kick itself all the way into the sky above the character's head instead. So we had plenty of moments of characters running around like doing weird like ballerina moves and all sorts of fun stuff for a day or two there. I'd say that was a pretty fun bug.
What's IK stand for?
Inverse kinematics. Normally, animations and things like that are done using what's called FK, which is forward kinematics. The idea is like I move my shoulder first, and then I move my elbow, and then I bend my wrist in order to make this position in that order. And IK is the inverse of that, where I say, well, procedurally, I need to make sure my foot is actually on this plane and turned in this direction, and I need to figure out what my knee needs to do and my hip needs to do in order to actually accomplish that goal.
What is the V1 work culture like? And as an extension of that, what's it like working with Marcus, who those listening, that is the father of Master Chief. So he's got a reputation behind him.
It's great. V1 has been a great company from the very beginning. and building it from the ground up was kind of a unique perspective to be a part of for myself as well, especially this being my first ever ship title. So there's a lot of firsts for me at the same time. So I can't say that I can compare it specifically to other companies, but there are certain things like um, the trust in the employees via things like employee managed time off and just like daily work is not about clocking in and out and being gone for lunch for this amount of time and that amount of time. It's about, are you meeting your goals, and are you creating the work on the other side of it? And all of that trust comes into play because you think about what your day to day is going to be like, and when something comes up and you got to go take care of your car or your dog or whatever, that you're not you know walking on eggshells to pull something like that off. You just do it. You let people know, and you go take care of what you need to. And I think it sounds small, but it's huge for any job to be able to be trusted so much that you can take care of your business, and at the same time, they believe that you're going to do your work as well.
Beautiful segue into how is it working from home during a game launch?
Ooh, it was very difficult because you have to change a lot of the structure about what we do. And one of the hardest parts was not being able to take dev kits home right away for consoles because they're usually like IP locked for security reasons. So there was a bit of a difficult part there trying to finish some of the certification on things that we couldn't actually test on right away. But I'd say other than logistic issues like that, we got past it pretty quickly, and we benefited from one key thing, and that is that most of the design and the content was locked. We had just reached a point, where we really finished having things like feature meetings or anything to come up with actual ideas. I think those would be way more complicated and difficult to pull off via Zoom, and we benefited from the fact that the body of work was already in front of us. We knew exactly what we needed to do to sort of finish the game, and that made it a lot easier. And if you couple that with the amount of trust that we already have established between the entire team and how we work together, everyone we knew would be self-motivated to pull off this very challenging task in terms of finishing a game during a pandemic.
So as that day approaches, what are you feeling? You excited? You scared? A little bit of both?
Yeah, both is definitely a good way to put it. It's not ours anymore next week, and that's such a interesting moment to process because we're talking 6 years from the moment we sat down and started working on a prototype to putting this game actually out to the public. And I don't think there's anything that can prepare you for 6 years of your life, like pouring into something suddenly just no longer being yours anymore. So I'm excited, though, very excited to see how it's received and see all the hard work that all of us have put into it.
Do you have any advice, especially coming from your angle? You came from, you said DigiPen. Do you have any advice for people who want to get into the game industry and maybe have nothing? Maybe they're just finishing high school, or they're getting there, or they're just looking for something new and they want to get into the industry. What kind of advice do you have for them?
I would say that I'm sure that maybe people have heard this a lot before, but maybe not when I was first starting out in school. And it's that games are really hard to make. And I know it sounds silly, but it's something that really has to get put into like students' heads. If you have any idea of, I really love playing games, so I must enjoy making them, it really is not the case. You have to enjoy getting small victories out of solving small puzzles that lead up to big victories.
Like stopping a model from having its feet over its head.
Yeah, it's definitely like you have to be willing to put in that really hard work, and if you like that reward, at the very least, I can say some games are built to do that. So part of people that play those kind of games, if you appreciate the aspects of doing those tasks so that you can receive small rewards to reach like to platinum in all the games, maybe you've got the right mindset as well for game development, because you're always going to be staring up a mountain that seems like insurmountable, and the only way that you can climb it is to like take one step and deal with the rocks like right in front of you. And so it's not cut out. Like not everyone's cut out for that type of mentality. But if that sounds like you, then you've got the mentality to do it. Most of it is going to be mental fortitude for sure.
What kind of players do you think will dig this game?
I like to think that players of both shooters and real-time tactics games are going to get something out of this. It does require people to sort of let go of some of the things they know about those genres, but we like to think we took the best of sort of both of them and put them together in a way that really helps them work with the ebb and flow. So I really do think people are going to enjoy the differences those bring and something fresh to the table.
Finally, when can people pick up the game for themselves and on which platforms?
It's going to be out on June 16th, and it's going to be on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC via Steam.
Cool. Well, thanks for entertaining my questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. We got to play some games once it's out.
Oh, I'm in.
Wagoner? Sir, have you got weapons and shelter in there? Maybe you could give us a chance to rest and regroup at least.
Much better. A reasonable outlaw. We may have more of interest to you than guns.
Grav cycles? A working grav cycle.
So, you're a pilot. What's your name, son?
Romer.
Well, Romer, perhaps we can arrange for you and your team to earn your share. I'm putting together a crew. My latest crew, I should say.
Well, we're together, but we ain't exactly together.
We're your crew, Wagoner.
I thought you might be. Follow me.